I freaking love Red Dead Redemption 2. It very might be my all-time favorite game. Even beside its masterful stories and characters, there's something that appeals to me at a fundamental level when I'm just on my horse running through the beautiful landscapes that are best described as overwhelming. I had a moment when I first got this game and I was playing Red Dead Online because I'm chronically addicted to bad online games, where as I was climbing to the near peak of a mountain to catch a bounty, I found myself at a spot that overlooked 2/3 of the entire explorable overworld. I sadly don't have footage from this exact moment when it happened, but I did take this one screenshot, and there, I felt the feeling that this fictional world was somehow ungraspably big, populated by thousands of wildlife, farm animals, and people all living their own lives. For those who haven't played this game for yourself, you might scoff at such an idea. Red Dead Redemption 2 on its surface does look like another western cowboy fantasy, and after all, every NPC or Nacha Vista you run into, no matter how well programmed it is, are just lines of code following a set script. However, why I think I get this unique feeling is because Red Dead Redemption 2 is a master of immersion. Yes, everything at its base level is following a predetermined path, however, you don't feel that when you're playing. And I think a key factor, if not the key factor, are the NPCs. One reason why the NPCs are so important is because Red Dead Redemption 2 is a game that perfects the feeling of artificial Sonder. Sonder being the feeling or realization that every random person has a full and complex detailed life as much as your own. In real life, how this is often felt by a lot of people at once is there'll be something that shows us another complete stranger's life as having a minute aspect much like ours. In Red Dead 2, the same feeling is achieved artificially by the NPCs acting as natural and closely to real life as possible. This includes really small details like animals reacting to environmental noise or how hunting can attract larger predators. But one of the crazier details in this game is that NPCs will have a rough daily routine they follow. So a guy at a saloon, for example, won't keep on drinking in that one same spot, but rather he'll be going around the town and then come into the saloon and then eventually leave. Tens if not hundreds of complex stuff like this happens in the background even while the player is paying no attention to it. Yet it still really helps the world feel lived in. But that doesn't mean that NPCs won't diverge from their routines to react to something a player does. A really simple example of this is when you wear a mask into town and people will start questioning or mocking you for covering your face.
Oh, don't need to worry on me. I don't know your face from Adam.
Now, this kind of short-term NPC reaction scripting has become pretty much standard stuff for a lot of modern open world games. However, what surprised me on my first playthrough, and honestly still kinda does, is that NPCs in this game don't have amnesia.
This is big brain time.
By that I mean, in most games, you can kill a bunch of people out in the open, leave, then come back to the area like nothing ever happened. But in Red Dead Redemption 2, if you massacre a town, even after you drop your wanted level, you'll still have threats thrown at you from all directions next time you decide to come back. What's more, some distinctive NPCs will even have long-lasting impressions about you.
You think you're real crazy, mister?
I'm talking to you, so I must be crazy.
Used to know a fella. A bit like you.
What was his name?
I forget. Funny face. Alan. Or something, I think.
All this and much more, because I promise you, I'm not even scratching the surface, goes to help the immersion that these aren't just puppets on a string being forced to move and do certain tasks, but are actual, at least semi-intelligent humans that have full entire lives outside of just what you see. But when the NPCs of Red Dead Redemption 2 really shine and are more impressive than merely on a technical level are the side missions and random encounters. When you're just riding around minding your own business, you can often come across NPCs in some kind of situation.
The Ku Klux Klan! Oh no!
Maybe their legs are caught in a bear trap or they're begging for money. And you can respond to these however you want. You can help them out, but you can also mock them, just ignore them, or if you're really feeling like auditioning for the American Psycho sequel, tie them up and feed them to the alligators. Although sometimes, if you do decide to help an NPC out, it'll lead on to a lengthier side quest, where Arthur, the main character by the way, often decides to help complete, well, for lack of a better word, lunatics for no better reason than he has the time, I guess? Or, you know, some vague promises of some money. And while yes, some of the characters are a bit overly wacky or stupid or insensitive, these do go to help the world feel like it exists for more than just the main story and its characters. And unlike in a lot of other open world games, for the most part, I never felt these side missions were either tedious or annoying because they happened and progressed so naturally. One side mission that really stuck in my mind is the one where a guy, who I assume is a soldier, talks about the horrors he saw at an Indian boarding school. Now, if you don't know what an Indian boarding school is, just look it up. It's not good, I'll tell you that. So this soldier guy, while rambling on, says he's gonna go to sleep and then drops dead. After looting his body, because apparently I don't have a soul, I found some alcohol and a half-emptied bottle of horse medicine. That is some heavy stuff. I also can't forget to mention the interactions with the Vandaling gang, the band of outlaws that Arthur is a part of. Not only can you make random conversations with them while at camp,
Excuse me?
You know, hair pomade.
depending on the time or if it's a special occasion, you can often see them just having fun and enjoying life.
Blast away.
Showing the main cast of characters merely existing outside the confined missions like this are a rarity even amongst modern open world games. This game is full of small and detailed moments like this that help the player put weight on the lives of these NPCs. And that brings us to another really important way the player interacts with the NPCs in Red Dead Redemption 2. This is the honor system. Basically, every time you go full sicko mode on random innocent people, or act selfishly, your honor will drop into the red little by little. On the contrary, if you help out random NPCs or make certain moral story decisions, your honor will rise into the white.
Give it to the poor, brother.
Thank you. I will.
By this way, they give the player a sense of morality. And I know, Red Dead Redemption 2 is far from the first game to ever have a morality system like this, but dare I say, it's the best one ever done. Even in games like Undertale, BioShock, or Infamous, which are, great games in their own right, for most of those games, the morality system feels nothing but like a simple task you fill a certain way to get different NPC interactions or endings. And while that's also true, especially by the end in Red Dead 2, the changes which happen for most of the game are really subtle, like Arthur's personality or how other characters view you.
He was a good man. As much as any of us could be. He wasn't a good man. None of us were.
And these mostly really tiny changes, rather than feeling like the game going through ticking off checkboxes, have a sense of being a real consequence of the actions you've taken. And it also feels like these decisions you're making actually have impact on the characters around you. Thereby, it makes you care about your morality beyond getting different endings. This, for me at least, actually incentivized me to avoid random acts of violence or even shooting first in a fight. And again, all players didn't play the game like the boring square I am.
Don't you tell me how many calories I need, bitch!
I love blowing out random NPCs with my multi-million-dollar death machines in GTA Online as much as the next guy. And I'm not saying games like that are bad. The GTA series is like that on purpose because it's one big satirical commentary. Or it was before it turned into what it was satirizing by, fucking GTA Online. But nonetheless, I have a hard time disassociating with the NPCs of Red Dead 2 like I do with GTA's, because they often feel like real people who can't just be killed frivolously.
Sometimes we must trust each other, even when we don't know each other, or else we walk this life alone.
I think this is the last but key factor in why it's so easy to be immersed in Red Dead 2's world. No matter how realistic a game's graphic, AI, or controls are, if the player is able to disassociate from the world, then they're nothing but an outside observer playing God. Look at games like GTA 5 or even Minecraft on RTX mode. But Red Dead Redemption 2, using its nuanced characters and morality system, rips that ability to disconnect away from the player. And in doing so, they make you genuinely care. And ultimately, why I think this multi-layer system of NPCs and morality systems is so brilliant is that it ties back into the main theme of Red Dead Redemption 2. Throughout the game, the player is able to guide Arthur into what kind of person he is. Either that be low or high honor, Arthur's actions and consequences parallels that of the player. And if you do play with a high honor by doing stuff like helping out NPCs and making selfless decisions, people start telling Arthur that he's a good man.
Brother Dorkins was right about you. You are the most wonderful man.
Brother Dorkins is greatly deceived, I'm afraid, but I'm happy to help a little.
And although if you look at what Arthur does non-contextually, by no means is he a moral person by most standards. After all that money you're giving away has to come from somewhere else on Outlaw. But from these people's point of view, Arthur is a good person. And I think so too. Sure, he's a part of a band of outlaws that frequently kill or rob people, but he mentions that he thought that there was a purpose behind all this when they started.
There used to be some reason to it. Lines that couldn't be crossed. We even helped some folk. Those lines have been gone for some time now.
I think Arthur also realizes that the serving a higher purpose philosophy their leader Dutch hasn't given them was BS.
Dutch is... I guess my thinking is he used you. He wasn't trying to help anyone but himself and his own crazy principles.
Dutch often uses the justification that they're stealing from those who prey on the weak and vulnerable, so, it's karma or whatever. However, Dutch starts doing some pretty unexcusable things like killing people when they just get in the way.
Easy, Dutch. What was that?
Horrible old crone.
But you killed her.
She was gonna betray us, Arthur. Couldn't you tell?
No.
Well, I got some Spanish. She was.
You keep killing folk, Dutch.
But Arthur, even while dying of tuberculosis, or actually maybe because he is dying, starts to look out for his fellow man beyond anything else. So although he did many, many terrible things, I genuinely feel like the silver lining of this story is that he at least tried to do some good, and he managed to correct his path by the end of his life. Red Dead Redemption 2 at its core is a story that values selflessness, compassion, and helping others. That's why this game puts so much focus on the morality system. It's ultimately not money or guns that decide which ending becomes Arthur's fate. It's the honor. And I think there's something to learn from that. Just helping others because you can. Remember a couple months back when that whole everyone IRL is an NPC thing was trendy on TikTok? Where people would walk into a store, say nonsense, leave, and then giggle to themselves?
It's sardine paste. It's delicious.
And now, although I think it's fairly harmless, there's NPC streaming.
Spicy! Thunderbolts are scary!
Why do I even try anymore? Even calling someone an NPC has become like a new insult, meaning they're dull, basic, and follow the crowd aimlessly. And while I get where the sentiment is coming from, trust me, I live in South Korea, I still think that's a really harmful way to look at life and everyone else around you. I know the internet, by and large, has made everyone have main character syndrome, and the guy on YouTube saying that is pretty much like pot calling the kettle black, and I'll admit that. But this NPC stuff, that's like the next extreme step. Like I said earlier, in games like GTA 5 where you disassociate with the NPCs because you view them as dumb or lesser than you, it encourages the player to act out insane behavior towards those NPCs. And isn't that exactly what we've been seeing on platforms like TikTok, but with real people? All these pranks where people straight up walk into people's houses or harass employees or steal public shit? And while obviously these are all extreme examples, I still think they're all derived from the same place. It's this overly egocentric, self-centered mindset that's everywhere. Even worse, there are those that are proud of it and made it their entire brand. Now don't get it twisted, parents. I'm not saying video games cause this. That's just bullshit that the government feeds you to scapegoat all their problems. Instead, I think it's actually the other way around. Games like GTA are criticizing people for only looking out for themselves and not giving one damn about others. Even the endings in GTA 5, which are considered as the bad ones, are in which the idea of only looking out for yourself climaxes in killing one of your friends.
I ain't been nothing but straight and true with you.
Surviving is winning, Franklin. Everything else is bullshit. And now you're gonna... Cap, the only one who was ever decent to you!
I think Red Dead Redemption 2 is also doing a similar thing, criticizing being selfish, but in a more constructive way. Characters like Dutch, knowingly or not, turns her back on others and takes advantage of people when it's convenient or benefits him. And consequently, he sees himself as a righteous leader justified in doing the terrible things he's done, and sees the rest of the world as exclusively the enemy, a tool, or irrelevant in the face of his twisted philosophy or this higher end goal. which is just a facade because all he really cares about is money. Where have I seen behavior like that before? I mean, they're both fighting the civilized Western world. I mean, you can't make this shit up. Meanwhile, Arthur, in the end, rejects that. He learns to see the good in people and to help them just for the sake of helping them, even dies for it. I think we can empathize even with literal NPCs if we try, feeling that they have lives, hopes, and dreams. Feel a bit of Sonder, realizing every random person is living a life just as complex and meaningful as our own, that you aren't the only character in the world, and sometimes the simplest kindness is far more important than any abstract higher goal. I think Abigail put it best.
Here's the moral code. Look out for folks. Stop trying to act like some hero in a book.
What do you know about heroes and books?
My reading's getting pretty good.